Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Square. I am your host, Kage, with
Neff.
And buttons.
and today we are going to talk more about Arcane, the latest sensation on Netflix. It's been out for a little while, so we're going to talk about that. We talked about it on the last episode, but we're kind of going to go in an overall thing as opposed to just the last act. But we'll also be talking about December movies as well. So let's get into it. So I am a big fan of Arcane. I absolutely loved the first season. And I was, like many fans, I was anticipating season two. And season two has come and gone. And folks, it is amazing. It is very, very, very good. And like I mentioned before, we did talk about it in our last episode. I believe Buttons, you watched Arcane as well?
Yes, I did finish it. I was still in the process of watching it, so we didn't want to give any spoilers for people like me who hadn't finished it yet. But it has now officially been out and done for I think 2 weeks.
It came out. I think it came out November. The last episode was November 23rd.
Okay.
I want to say.
So yeah, so we've hit a couple weeks now for the rest of you guys to catch up. So, I mean, did we want to have any kind of spoilers or just kind of jump into what happens?
I think it's okay.
Spoil away.
I think it's
Spoil
okay
away.
to talk about the spoilers because one, it has been out there for a couple of weeks. But just as a service to our listeners out there, if you have not watched Arcane, stop listening.
Skip ahead.
Come back and listen to this later and share your thoughts with us, okay? It is a great show, all right? Go give it a check. Go give it a check out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
So
I mean, I know for me, one of the big things with this show was, I got really addicted when the first season came out and I was like, all right, ready. I'm good. Where's the next season? And it took a long time for that second season to come out. And it was worth the wait because, I mean, they kept the quality there as far as the animation and the story and everything else. I will say I was not pleased with like the last 3 episodes that they released. Only, I guess, because I'm more of a happily ever after kind of person. And this show, guys, it's not your happily ever after.
Yeah, Buttons is absolutely right on that. There is not a lot of happy in this show. It definitely has its moments. I don't think there's any nice way to say this, but like tragedy is entertainment, like drama, I guess.
Well, it's the driving factor of the story overall.
Right. It's kind of difficult for me to talk about specific episodes, like what happened, because the show has so much action, so many complexities, so many characters, scenes jumping here, telling what this person is doing, jumping over here, telling what this person's doing. There's a lot of that. There's some flashbacks.
You know what? I would say a good way to handle this is like, tell me one of the things that you think that was like the best thing they did in this series. Like, just overall, overarching kind of, because we don't have to get into the specifics of it. We're both agreeing it's a great show.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you're like, hey, this stands out very prominently as like something that they did really well with the series?
I mean, like, yeah, if we want to kind of touch on bullet points about like the things we really like about it.
Well, I figured we'd give like a good point and then we could go with like one of our bad points.
Sure. In terms of like gaming adaptations, this is definitely up there with one of the best. And what I love about it is that you don't have to play League of Legends or even be a gamer at all to appreciate it. You can come in not knowing anything about any of these characters and just watch it for what it is.
Oh yeah, they definitely fleshed out the characters.
They did a fantastic job at doing that.
And so if you've never played the game, like if you've played the game, you kind of recognize them and you go, oh, that's them. You're like, you could pick them out and be like, oh, that's that character. Although some of the characters, they did change a little bit. to where you weren't really sure that was them at first, and then you kind of were like, oh, okay, yes, that's them. And specifically, I'm referring to oh God,
Describe, I would know.
the okay. So at the very end, he's the guy that handles all the monsters. So
Oh,
not Vincent.
No,
but
crap, tip of my tongue, folks. I just said I knew it all, and I
I want to say his name's with an S.
Yeah, not Silco.
No, Silco wasn't even in the game, right? That's a character.
Silco,
that's
I
just
do not
created for
believe
this.
he is
Like Silco
in
and
the game. He was the mad scientist. I'm kind of
yes,
looking.
the
I'm
mad
kind of
scientist.
looking through it right now. But yeah, like
His character at first, I was like, is that him? And then I was like, I don't know. And then yes, eventually I get into the point because I kind of thought maybe that's what they were going to do with Vincent's character. I thought they were going to turn him into the mad scientist at first, because he started messing with the Arcane and started, kind of going off the deep end there. So I mean that aspect of the show, and this is in the second season.
Singed.
Singe. Okay.
His name is Singe. So Singe is kind of like he is the mad scientist.
He
He's
is.
doing genetic experiments, and he's not really working for anybody. He's a scientist, and like any
Well, he's
scientist,
doing it for his own.
he's
benefit.
doing right. He's doing it for his own. He likes to experiment. He's in like
the,
and if
the woman or the girl or whatever.
Jinx.
No, not Jinx. The one in the coffin that he's trying to keep alive or bring back to life.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of some of that stuff that. Okay, so my biggest problem that I had with the show was in those last 3 episodes, they threw so much extra that should have been its own season. Introducing, the witchcraft angle with everything else that's going on. There's the war between the top side and the underside. And then they're like, oh, hey, and here's some witches. And
Yeah,
I was
so-
like, I was like, wait, what? And they don't really give a whole lot. They were really great about doing backstories and all this other stuff. And you're like, okay, so here's, the backstory of all this drama between one of these prominent members, kind of like a ruler of the city. Because she's on the council, so she's this council member, and her mom
Mel.
shows up. Yes, Mel. And her mom shows up, and she's like got her own thing. Mel was essentially banished to Piltover. Like that was
Yeah.
kind of her thing. Is like she had like this high standing family, and her mom was like, "Hey, I don't think you're good enough. Go get out of town and go take care of
Yeah.
this. And if you can be successful here, then we'll talk about you coming back." And the mom is like this huge military soldier type woman, and then all of a sudden now she's a witch, not the mother,
So-
Mel. And you're like, oh, she had a secret love child, and her brother was killed, and you're like, why is all of this stuff coming out now? Why did they not address this earlier in the season? Why did they not make this its own season?
So I
because
think
that
there's a
was
lot
my
of
thing.
there's a lot of things at play. So first and foremost, League of Legends game, I have played it on and off, and I can tell you that there are over 150 characters, and they're always making more, and each one with their own lore and backstory
Right.
and stuff. And so that being said, I think as a animation studio, the writers, working on the show, I think that in a way they kind of suffer from their own success in a way of the lore, you know what I mean? Because like there's so much lore that and everything is kind of intertwined with each other. It's really difficult to kind of cut off and say, well, we can go more into the Black Rose
Right.
society. That's the witches, if you will.
Right.
So they are in the game, and they're very, very, very dangerous, very powerful. And so anyway, there's that's something that that's kind of going on. But like when you're writing a story, a cohesive story for everyone, not just gamers, you kind of have to pick and choose like what to cut off, no matter how interesting that path may be to go down there. And it's very difficult because I agree with you completely. I feel like I love the second season, but yes, overall, I feel like it was really rushed. I feel like they really could have fleshed out more. But to be fair, it's like,
I
again, any of these characters, any of these things, they could be fleshed out more. Absolutely. And so we have to pick and choose. But I agree with you 100%. I want to know more about that. I think they should have expanded it more. And I think the reason why they didn't, let's just cut to the chase, money.
Yeah.
This is one of the most expensive shows, if not the most expensive show, animation. I don't know if it's just animation or show overall that Netflix has done.
Yeah.
And so it would cost a stupid amount of money because there was a 4-year gap between season 1 and season 2. And, you know, the fact that they were able to give us this in 4 years, because developing a game can go on for a decade.
Well, right. I'm
This-
just saying that they had a story.
Yeah.
Like you could tell because the story was really well done. And I just felt that when you got to the end here and you're introducing, you know,
Characters at
how-
the end.
Exactly. You're introducing this whole secret society, you know, as kind of like another bad guy on top of the whole Arcane being, you know, somehow this trippy mind meld, you know, situation where Vincent's like, oh, it's the ultimate way to control everybody by taking away everybody's right to choose. Like very zombie-esque, you know, way of,
Yeah, there's-
of mind melding everybody into like a hive mind, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is and I mean, yes, I liked how the overall story was fleshed out. I just didn't like how they added in so much extra. I just kind of
the
wanted,
end.
yeah, I just kind of wanted them to wrap up the character arcs that we had for everybody. I mean, like, I did like how they skipped ahead. Like at least I think it was about a year that they jump
Yeah.
after the initial bad happens, and then they kind of focus on a couple of characters per episode. That was kind of nice because it was like, okay, yeah, you kind of want to know what's happening to everybody at once, but at least by doing just 1 or 2 per episode, it was, you could see like a little bit more focus on
Yeah.
the individual characters, and like Heimerdinger, and you know the other version of Jinx. It was kind of like an alternate reality, you know. So it was like, oh, okay. So you bring them in here, and you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Echo's got his alternate Echo, you know, alternate Jinx.
It was a basically another version of Zon. It was another world where
Right.
hex tech was never invented, and
Right.
they showed
well,
how
and I think
it
they
affected
said it was a
the.
time jump too. It was maybe like earlier days because he was saying like it wasn't even the same time period.
Like, I think he thought that, but
Heimerdinger?
Heimerdinger told Echo that this isn't the past. This is actually another timeline altogether.
Oh, okay.
So what's going on is in this world there is no hex tech, there is no arcane magic, and because this discovery
never
never
developed and all
happened,
that.
now Piltover and Zon are kind of like on equal footing. It's so positive down there. There's no drugs. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no
Yeah.
gangs. Everybody's happy. Jinx is normal. And unfortunately,
Yeah,
in
the
that
only-
world, Vi is gone.
Yeah,
And she was said to be a coward, which is complete opposite of what we know her as. She's always looking for a fight. She's always looking to defend the people that she loves.
That's what I'm saying. Like it was definitely kind of a weird thing. But and of course, I even like the fact that they bring in and kind of explain a little bit more, because with Silco, like you never really understood why he just picked up Jinx out of the gutter. Like when he finds her right after she had, you know, just her sister had just left her,
Yeah.
and everything else. And then you find out about Vander and Silco having been friends with the mother, and they were like, hey, you guys are going to be godfathers and you have to like look after the kids.
Yeah.
And so now you're like seeing this different side of Silco, even where, you know, I think, what was it that they called it? There was like a toast that they did, and it was like,
I mean, I know about them.
you know, the toast that they kept saying, it was like something and something. But anyway,
Yeah.
my point being is you got to see in the alternate reality version, or in this alternate universe version, because it freaked Echo out. He's all like, "Whoa, you're here, Silco, what the hell?"
Yeah, because
right?
he was the only one there who knew about the other world, basically his world. So in his mind, he's like, "Oh my God, that guy's dead, and I haven't seen him, and he's like a parent to me." And he goes
Oh,
and gives
yeah,
him a
his-
hug and everything, and then he's acting weird towards Jinx, and everyone's looking at Echo like, why are you acting like this? He's acting like this because this is a whole new world to him,
Yeah.
and apparently things have been going on. And can you imagine blacking out for a month and coming in and like you have an appointment next week? I have a performance this sort, and you're being told what your life is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're just kind of like in the dark. So I think, so kind of talking about let's talk kind of about the show overall. Like, I really love the writing. I love the animation. I'm not a big, I shouldn't say, like, I don't watch a lot of animated stuff. I watch anime every once in a while, but like, I don't go to the movies. Like, I'm not going to go to the movies to see Moana. I'll see it when it comes out in stream. Okay, Moana 2. But something like this, it caught my attention right away. I saw
Because
the
of the
quality.
gaming
Well,
aspect.
because I know the game, but because Riot, who makes the game, also makes music. They make music videos, and the music videos are to promote skins that are for the game. The same animation studio based out of France is in charge of making the show. I'm just spitballing, but I feel like all those music videos that we've been getting over the years was kind of like a test bed to flex their muscles to see what they can do. Oh, you've made X amount of music videos with this quality. They're all 3D animated. Let's give you $230 million or whatever, and let's see what you can do. Make a show. And they did. And so all of their music videos have 6-figure views, easy and more. And it doesn't surprise me that the show was successful. The writing, the fight sequences was just smooth. It didn't look janky, and the show is, despite being animated, it's very mature, folks. People die. People
A lot of people.
a lot of people die. It does not hold back.
And most of the fight scenes are very graphic and violent.
They're very not in a Mortal Kombat sort of way,
No.
but they're pretty violent, yeah. And it's tragic. And one thing I feel like, one thing they say in Mortal Kombat, for example, is that no one is really dead. They can find some lore, magic way to bring people back. And I feel like in some aspect, we have that in Arcane. So one thing I knew from being a gamer is at the end of season 1 of Arcane, they kept cutting at the end of the episodes. They would cut back to Singe working independently in his lab, and you're like,
Yeah.
what is he doing? What is he
Well,
doing?
that was Singe's whole thing, and they do explain that in the second season.
Oh, yeah.
As far as what his experiments are for.
Right, but you see him doing all these little things, and it's building up to something. And then there's a part, one of the last episodes of season 1, I think, they show something giant hanging from the ceiling. And I had my Leonardo DiCaprio moment. I was like, I know what that is. I know what that is. I'm pointing at the TV. And that was him creating Vander, or Warwick, I'm sorry. So as the werewolf, the genetically made werewolf. And I'm like, ooh, he's going to be a big thing. And sure enough, he shows up and he's absolutely terrifying, but it's also tragic,
Oh, it's
very sad. Like, you think about what happened to him. He was thought to have been dead,
Well,
and he
even
got turned
in the
into
second
something.
season, they almost give him back his humanity just to
Yeah.
rip it away from him again. So, and I do not know why, but I thought it was a very interesting choice for him to be vomiting up magma. I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was about, but it
That's
looked like
just
he
one
was
of the
literally
that's
vomiting.
just
I watched that part and that kind of bugged me because I was all like, oh, it's surrounded
this is
by
one of those
liquid hot
this is one of those
magma.
video game things where you're just expected to suspend your disbelief, just to move on.
I know,
It's
I
flashy,
just-
it's glowy, and it's like,
Yeah.
I know that he's
It's
psychotic.
just vile. It's just
Sure,
vile.
like,
but
and
it
he's
looked
poison-
like liquid hot magma. That's all I'm saying.
Magma.
Magma.
But thank you.
I need more sharks. I need more sharks with freaking
Freaking
laser
laser beams
beams on their
attached to it.
freaking heads.
Warwick coming out with a laser on his head. But yeah, all in all, it was really great, and I can't speak about the music enough because remember the animation studio that made this, they done all the music videos and a lot of scenes. Man, the music was amazing. I have added so much Arcane soundtrack music to my Spotify. It's really, really good. They're really good at making you feel the emotion, whether it's the orchestral
Well, and
music
you
versus
mentioned in
the.
our last episode too that they got big names.
Oh, yeah,
behind
absolutely.
the main opening song and even some of the songs that are inside of the series itself. But for all the good things that I'll say, I probably have just as many little tweaks here and there, but it's all nitpicky stuff. I think overall the series stands on its own. It's a very good series. And yeah, I mean, for those of you guys who aren't adverse to watching animated shows, it's a great animated show.
Yeah, it's not something you'd pull up for your kids. Maybe you can watch with your kids. There's no nudity. There's no people getting their spines ripped out. There's some close scenes. There's some close scenes,
I'm just
but
saying,
they don't
not
actually.
even the people that you'd want to see nude.
True.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not
All right,
trying to
so we just learned
I'm not trying
something
to
about.
age shame anyone, but I really didn't need to see Mel's mother like walking around all naked and with her pretty boy
The horror.
lover and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, they show back and shoulder. They might show butt, and that's about it. There's no.
It's not a full frontal.
It's not.
but
Yeah, it's not a full frontal, but they definitely come close.
more close. Too close for comfort is my opinion.
Maybe I'm just numb to it just because of stuff I've seen in games.
But I've seen some stuff.
I've been there. But yeah, all in all, yeah, a great show, great animation, great music. And for those that are asking about certain characters or certain things like the Black Rose, the whole magic aspect, it has already been reported that there's going to be 3 spin-off shows.
I figured that they would have introduced it so that they could run it into other shows if they are going to pick it up and bring it into other shows.
Yeah, and
Or
I
other
feel
seasons.
like people will definitely be receptive to it. I know I will. I want to see it. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for those. But yeah, 3 spin-off shows are already in the works because in that world there's, I think Zon is the city, and then you have Piltover, then you have Runeterra, which is that world. They don't call it Earth, they call it Runeterra. And there are there's Noxus, there's all these other places. So they can easily make one show about Noxus, one show about this place and this place.
Yeah. Like
So
you
they're
said,
so
they've
we're
got
gonna
a lot
learn.
of content that they could pull from. I think the main thing for them is kind of what you were saying before, is that, they threw a lot of money at this, and if they want it to be lucrative to them, and I mean, granted, yes, it's a great exposure for the game itself, but if Netflix wants it to be lucrative, they probably are gonna need to bring down that price point a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just have to wait and see. The other thing I heard, so this right here is a big spoiler, and hopefully you turn this episode off and go watch it before we start talking about all this. But people are like, so the ending was not happy, and you have Jinx, died.
They had the little glitch though at the end, which was kind of a tease.
Well, I looked at that. I rewatched that tease. It just says the end.
Well, no,
It's
but
a flash.
right. But what I'm getting at is, you made a good point, which is that they can everybody's not always dead. So at the very end, you don't really actually see them dead.
You don't see a body.
You don't see bodies
Yeah.
of Jinx and I guess now it would be Warwick, but you don't really see them.
Yeah.
So there's always the possibility that as they were falling or something to that effect. I mean, Echo has his thing that was able to transport him through time. And Heimerdinger had his whole little moment where you don't really see him truly die.
So I'll tell you
either.
something about him.
Things just get really wonky because that was what Echo had discovered when he figured out his whole little time stopping and or reversing or whatever you want to call it. After he went through so much time of reversing,
Yeah.
weird things started to happen. And of course, with the separation of him and Heimerdinger, you kind of go, oh, well, Heimerdinger's definitely not going to make it through that. And so with that, you could still make the argument that in an alternate realm or universe or whatever, or in some kind of twist of fate with magic, with the arcane magic, maybe they were just transported and they're still alive.
So I'll tell you one thing I do know is that Heimerdinger is not dead.
Right.
Because Yordles, when they die, they just basically respawn or regenerate at their place of origin.
Respawn.
Like that wasn't a pun, folks, but like look it up. That's because that's
The lore.
the lore. So his race, they can't actually die like that. They'll just be reborn at their place of where they're from. But as for Jinx, Caitlin looks at a piece of paper and an air vents that are going down the side. So she fell down the shaft, and then you see Caitlin looking at blueprints of said shaft, and there's all these chutes on the side walls that just go off. So the theory that's been going on online is that Jinx always has a plan. She's always resourceful. As unlucky as she may be in some aspects, accidents, things happen, hence the Jinx name, she always ends up okay. You know what I mean? Something always happens. And so that was the fan theory. Well, here's where it gets interesting. There are numerous articles, interviews out there with both the cast and the writers and directors, and they're all saying the same thing. What happened to Jinx? What happened to Jinx? Is she really dead? And rather than just saying straight up yes or no, they're answering all these questions, and they get to that one, and they're just kind of like playfully like, maybe not, like that. And it's funny because when you ask them about certain characters, are they dead? They're like, dead, or sometimes they'll say dead for now, like they'll say that.
now.
But when they talk about Jinx, they're like, maybe she is, maybe she isn't.
We don't know.
And then there's YouTube videos of people breaking down why she survived. Like there's foreshadowing in the earlier episodes where she says something in the one of the earlier episodes in season 1 talks about flying. Like one day I'm gonna fly in one of those blimps, those ships or whatever.
Right.
And then you fast forward to this, and what do we see? The very last thing we see is a ship going off out there. And Jinx was saying in these last episodes that she basically needs to make things right, and she has to say goodbye, blah, blah, blah. Goodbye doesn't necessarily mean die. She realizes that there's nothing.
Well, she did try to kill herself, though.
She did, but she had a change of heart in the end.
Right.
And she realized that I can't stay here. There's no place for me here. Mm-hmm. And I need to go and find my own person and not be influenced by the crime, Vander, Silco, the drugs or whatever. She has to, and I think the pivoting point was Isha.
Right.
Because she didn't care about anybody, not even herself. Like, I don't care. She just lost her second father, essentially, with Silco.
Right.
Like, that was her...
Well, technically, Silco was
well,
like
you know what I
third
mean.
Father.
Yeah.
She didn't really remember her first, because they had that, well, okay, so I think we probably could keep going on and on about this, but for the sake of brevity, the the way that they really wrote this show was great. It gives you opportunities for it to go into different directions if they wanted to. So all of the characters that they introduced, they gave great backstories to, even found ways to, make it to where they could easily jump into other stories. And so it was great to see that they found ways to interconnect the characters in ways that they didn't really have with the video game. So the video game, it just kind of gives them a basic backstory, and then they start trying to connect stuff.
And you jump, yeah.
But
No,
most
you're
of the
right.
characters don't all connect. So this way was a way for them to bring them all together and show an interconnected network that the studio could build off of to create something with the spin-off shows and that, where they could cross over. But they gave them their own standalone story. That's fine, just is. If they never made another show or anything like that, I would be happy with how this ended.
Yeah, no,
feel like
I
they gave it a
completely agree
nice-
with that.
I mean, again, like I said, I would have preferred a little bit happier ending, but
There's no happy.
right. With this show, like you were saying, Kage, it really does thrive on the drama, on the violence, and on death to some degree, because that's usually what propels forward their drive, the character's drive to do other things. So I mean, like with Jace's character, a lot of his stuff revolved around like, hey, I had a crappy childhood. Let me find ways to make lives better for other people. So, he's used to all of that kind of turmoil that you see in the world that they created, and they created a lot of tension between, the people who lived on, in the city, and then the people who lived under the city. So, it's really one of those things where you can enjoy what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Like from the social aspects of the show, to, what the characters each bring to it. And then, of course, you throw in the fantasy, and it's just a good time.
Yes, it's a great show, folks.
What
Go
would you
check it
two
out.
guys rate the show? Kage, what do you rate this out of 10?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give Arcane a solid 9 out of 10. The only reason I dock that 1 point, the only thing I don't like about it is how rushed the second season was. I'm not saying I want like 10 seasons. I don't want that, but just to have a clear, concise story and end to everything.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have fleshed that out. Maybe who knows? I'm just spitballing here. Maybe an extra few episodes just to flesh it
Gonna
out a
say
little
that,
bit
maybe
because
one or two more.
yeah, because they introduced a lot of new ideas,
Yeah.
concepts, characters
Way too
towards the
fast.
end, and like they're fascinating for what little they're on the screen, but
Right.
then like all of a sudden they're gone. We move to the next scene and we
Yeah,
never
it's
see
like,
them
well,
again.
what
It's
about
like
that?
if you're gonna show me a new concept, a new character or whatever, or kind of touch on an arc, then finish your thought. I guess is what I'm saying. And maybe that was on purpose to kind of give you some bait,
Tease you to the
tease you,
next.
and they're like, hey, we're gonna do, so they can get you to watch their next thing, next shows. But yeah, I give it a 9 out of 10.
Buttons, what do you think?
So I was more 7.5 out of 10, and it was mainly because of how cramped the last season felt. I don't think that there was anything wrong with the story overall, except for introducing so much new information that kind of could have impacted the series as a whole if it had been introduced earlier. So I mean, introducing the Mel's magic abilities and things like that, you're like, oh, this would have been super helpful early on in the series if she had been able to do all this stuff.
Yeah, but
And-
that's the drama.
Well-
though. You got to have something at the end, like it's not an M. Night Shyamalan this whole time. Like it has to look gloom and doom, and at the end, there's something that comes out that you didn't
Well,
know.
but see, here's my thing: is so they introduce this as this great, wonderful thing that she suddenly has control over. And first of all, when you introduce magic ability, let me just say, either you're gonna naturally know how to do it, or you're going to have no idea what you're doing. And she was in between that. She had way more knowledge of what to do when she was throwing up shields and stuff than she should have, when she just literally had found out that she has some magic ability. And
I think there was a time jump in there, though. I think they did say that she
not a
did
huge jump.
not a time, but like she's
She was
kind
in,
of taken
she had
under
been,
wing with the Black Rose,
right,
And
but
then
I mean,
they
she
don't
was
show
treated
us
like
that.
a prisoner. She was being tortured mentally.
Well,
like-
no, that was the trigger.
The whole second season was basically her, she had been kidnapped, and they were torturing her. They were trying to mess with her mind. Like, she literally was screaming in one episode for like the entire time that she was in there, because they kept messing with her, and then she'd scream, and then it's cut to another scene, and then she's talking to the entity, and then like you're not really sure, and then you're like, oh, it's her brother.
It wasn't
it's not her
the it
brother, and then
wasn't
she's
the whole
screaming
it
again.
wasn't the whole season.
Well, no, but I mean, like, in terms of her arc when they reintroduced her, she's like, oh, there she is. She's been captured. Like, that was her mother's big thing. Like, oh gosh, we got to find out what happened to her because she's been captured. And then, like I said, then they reintroduce the brother, and you're like, oh, the brother's alive. Like, this is interesting. And then they're like, nope, just kidding. We were messing with your head. He's not really your brother. But my point is with this is, it wasn't like you had a scene where they're like, oh, here's how you tap into your energy now that you found it. And if you want things to happen, here's what you do, and here's how you do it. It was more like, hey, you escaped from our torture realm where we were holding you because we've determined that you could now be useful to us. And so we're sending you back to Piltover, and now you just know magic.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly what happened, because like
Did they have a training montage?
no,
that I missed?
they didn't. They didn't. But in the game, the Black Rose is like a big, like, I don't want to say shadow organization.
They just
Kinda
made
like-
it
kinda like-
seem like she was like this almost like a child of destiny or kind of thing, almost thing, where they're all like, oh, we knew you would be the one.
Like,
we
we're-
tested
we're-
your brother
we're
and it wasn't
watching
him, so he
you.
unfortunately died.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I've seen this in other anime, and I've seen this in other games, and I've seen this in movies where people, like, they reach a certain age and they develop their powers, or maybe they have their powers
It was
because
triggered.
or because it's triggered. Mortal Kombat, the movie, people
Mm-hmm.
find their arcana, something triggers it,
But
some
then they
emotion,
train on how to
something.
use it,
Yeah, they
though.
train on how to use it, and so she got captured by the Black Rose, and being that singular event is what triggered her powers. And then she even says, I don't know what happened, I don't know how that was. And then that's when the Black Rose come out and kind of tell her, we've been watching you for a long time because we know you have I don't know if it's descendant or you have our blood. There's something in you
I think
we
it had to
we
do with
know
the
about.
father. They introduced
think-
that she was the love child that the mother was never supposed to have.
Okay, yeah, it is something tied. And
Because
to be
then-
fair, I gotta watch the show again, because this is kind of like The Matrix, where every time I watch it, I
Well, they kept
find
calling
some
her
new.
sister too, and that was the other thing where it was all like,
Well, it's not
was
literal
the
sister.
Black Rose character the sister, or was she the love? Because that was where it was. This is what I'm saying. When you introduce new stuff into a show, and they didn't really give it a whole lot of time to flesh it out, they were just like, we're this organization, and we've been watching you, but I'm also your sister, but I'm not your sister. Your mother screwed up, so we captured the brother and we killed the brother, and you have magic, so we like you.
Thinking
so we're
too
gonna send
deep.
you back.
Went too deep.
But that's what I'm saying, is they tried to push a lot into
Like, I
that.
agree, they could have fleshed out, but what I'm
it's
saying
just
is,
poor writing.
I understand.
They're like, just
It's
accept
a
this for what
device.
it is.
It's a device to move the story
That's what it
forward.
seems like.
She needs to be able to put up a shield to protect people, therefore we'll give her
Now,
magic.
if they
and
go
now when
into
this
that in
battle,
the next
she can
season,
use
or
the
like Kage
shield.
said, you would have gave it more care with 2 or 3 episodes.
Right.
You could have did
Well,
that.
the
but when
Black
the show
Rose-
cost so much money, they're like, hey,
The Black Rose is something that I heard that will be touched upon in
next season.
Right.
one of the other shows.
And so
Oh,
by,
and following another character.
right, and
Yeah.
that's all good and well, but like I said, for Mel, for her journey, I felt like they started her off as this cold, calculated, only concerned with wealth and power, right? Then she has her thing with Jace. and you're like, oh, you get to see the softer side of her. She's actually like not so cold and calculated. She actually can show human emotion and care for people. And then you kind of see the relationship with her mother, and you introduce like how crappy her childhood was and how much of a, pain in the ass her mother is. And then you kind of all of a sudden now it's like, you find out about her history with her brother and how all that
Yeah.
is related.
How
And
many core
then-
characters would you say are in this show?
core characters?
Because it sounds like
geez.
there's at least 4.
So I would say that the show mostly is going to revolve around pairs, actually. So you've got the arc with Jinx and Vi, and then you've got Jace and Vincent. Victor, excuse me. Victor. And then you've got Heimerdinger
And Echo.
and Echo.
That's 6.
And then you have
But Silco and
you have
Vander.
You have Singe and
Singe
Singe and Vander slash
No, Silco and Vander were more.
well, Silco and Vander, yeah, but
Because they're like the leaders of the rebellion.
So in
Singe
totality,
and Warwick, like there's
are
a
their
lot
own
of
thing.
well,
but-
yeah, but what all this stuff is like
Yeah.
interwoven, and then you
ensemble.
They all,
and then you
because,
have Caitlyn,
because you
yeah.
have the interconnected relationship, because Jason Caitlyn had a thing, a friendship, but, and then of course, then you have Caitlyn and Vi, and then you have, the connection of, Vincent and Singe, and then you have the connection with Heimerdinger and Echo, but also Heimerdinger and Jace, and
So with all
Vincent, for
these
that
things
matter.
going on at the same time, you would still say in totality that the show is it's pretty solid with the
It's
characters that they're implementing in the
it's an
storyline, and it
ensemble.
doesn't feel like
Talking-
it's jumping around too much. It's
Talking
pretty good.
talking to other gamers
Yeah.
online, seeing the Reddit, seeing comments and stuff. Gamers love this show. Many of them are giving it a 9, 10 out of 10. It's just amazing.
There's like 10 characters that are constantly moving around this series that I would say it's almost, it does jump a little bit in the realm of like the way that Game of Thrones would jump. So I mean, you follow this group for a little while, then you follow that group for a little while, and then at the end,
pretty cool they can
it's
tie all
all
that in.
interconnected together. And that's why I said
it's
that it
all
was
leading
really
up to one
well.
thing.
Yeah.
It was all really well done, the melding together. But for the most part, each episode really picks just a couple people to focus on. And then maybe has like little touches here and
Yeah.
there, like at the end, there's a little scene with Singe. Oh, at the end, here's like or halfway through, they jump just temporarily
Yeah.
to what's going on with like Jason Caitlyn or something.
When do you
or
guys
Jason
speculate that season 3 will be? Whether
for
or
a
not
couple
it's these
years.
characters, because I know Kage said that they're gonna be moving on to different characters.
Yeah.
But just when do you guys think overall that
I
we will
s-
see a season 3 of the Arcane show?
I think a couple years, like 2 years.
No,
Kage
no.
3.
Okay, saying
I'm gonna say
Minimum?
shorter?
I'm gonna say 4 to 5.
4 to 5, wow.
Well, because think about it, they made season 1, so they already had the studio, they already had the method, the character models, they already had all that. They had to make new, so once they had the engine to do the animation, they already had the characters designed. Now we gotta make new characters, now we gotta write new story. We're not starting from the ground up, true, because we already have it from 1, we already have these locations dialed
1
in.
and 2, yeah.
But then now we're going to be touching on a brand new place and a brand new set of characters. So they're going to have to design, I shouldn't say design.
They're gonna have to
They're
find
gonna-
a story.
Well, they're going to write a new story. They're going to have the same animation company behind it. They're going to be able to, but they have to remake these 3D characters.
And it's gonna be a new world.
And it's going to, well, not new,
I
same,
mean,
same world.
a new location.
new
So,
continent. Yeah. So, I mean.
the designs of the background, I'm saying, is
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
different.
so-
It's not gonna necessarily be
But what I'm
this-
saying is, season 1, between season 1 and season 2, it was 4 years.
Right.
And before that, I don't know how many years it took for them to make season 1. So I'm just going by that logic.
So
If
you
it took them 4 years to make season 2, then I would imagine it would take another 4 years or more.
To introduce new elements.
Because they have to introduce new elements. And also, there's going to be improvements in technology, too. So the fights can be flashy.
long as
I'm
it-
just spitballing.
As long as
could
it
be.
doesn't take as big a jump between Avatar.
I don't think it's going to be that.
I mean, you've got
decade.
yeah, as long as it's not like a decade.
right.
You're like, you're
Now,
like
some-
Avatar 2. You're
some
like,
games,
I'm over it.
some games have taken that long,
Well, sure.
a decade to make and stuff. But I don't see that happening for the show. But it's definitely not going to be 2 years. The only way I can see that coming on is if
They've been working on it.
working
what
on
I'm
it
saying.
right out the jump. Yeah.
That's what I figure is I figure they already had something in the works. If they're talking about, saying, yeah, we're going to have spinoffs and all this other stuff, I feel like they probably were already working on it.
And that's a possibility. But I think the cost is going to be the problem too.
Yeah.
I do.
If it was a lot
agree.
cheaper, it'd probably be a lot quicker turnaround.
Because the first,
we got it, you know what I mean?
yeah, the first season we're seeing what we can do. We're seeing if people like it. Oh, people like it. Okay, now
Right.
we're gonna make season 2, and like, okay, we got to see how people respond to season 2, and that'll determine if we cough up the funding, hire people,
Right.
and start going through this process. Are people bored with this? Oh no, it's getting good ratings, good views. Okay, now we have our confirmation that we need to know that people want this. There's an audience for what we do, so we're gonna keep doing it.
Word. So overall, guys, I think that was a great conversation. We're going to cut it off there, and then we're going to hit some December movies on this next episode that we do. But I think that was a very good in-depth conversation about Arcane. For anybody that's not familiar with the show, Arcane is streaming now, season 2, and I believe season 1 as well, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
So you can binge that all the way through, which will probably be the best thing to do, to be quite honest. You don't have that gap in time there, and everything fits continuity-wise. But yeah, great insight from both you guys there on that, Buttons and Kage. I think Buttons said, 7.5 out of 10? Kage says 9 out of 10. I think it's a recommend from both of them guys. So if you're interested in Arcane, go watch that now on Netflix. I definitely need to watch it as well, and I am probably going to binge that. But with that being said, I think we covered everything we need to cover today. Any other thoughts?
No.
I think we're good.
Alrighty, it's Neff signing off with
Kage.
and.
Buttons.
All right, guys, please like, subscribe to the channel, share this video with a couple of friends, and share a couple other videos from our catalog with a couple of friends. Let them know to subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications, and let us know what you think about Arcane overall. Like I said, comment down below. With all that being said, it's Neff signing off. Be safe.